Last night, Canada women's national team head coach Bev Priestman was removed from the Olympic team after she was suspended by Canada Soccer amid a drone spying scandal. Priestman did not coach Canada's opening 2-1 win over New Zealand on Thursday after their opponents saw drones flying over a training session, leading to 2 staff members being sent home early. According to a report from TSN, Canada's men's and women's soccer teams have attempted to film opponents' training sessions in the past, including the Olympics in 2021, where the women's team won gold. Canada Soccer CEO and General Secretary Kevin Blue said in a statement, quote, "Over the past 24 hours, additional information has come to our attention regarding previous drone use against opponents, predating the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. In light of these new revelations, Canada Soccer has made the decision to suspend women's national team head coach Bev Priestman for the remainder of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games and until the completion of our recently announced independent external review." Priestman has been in charge since 2020, and assistant coach Andy Spence will coach the reigning gold medalist for the remainder of the tournament. And for more on this, we now welcome in CBS Sports Canadian correspondent Joshua Kloke, who I'm sure has been a very busy man these past 24 hours. Josh, we also just heard earlier today from CEO Kevin Blue in a press conference with the media. What were some of your key takeaways from what he had to say during that media availability?
Yeah, for sure. There were probably 3 big takeaways for me from Kevin Blue's press conference. First of all, Kevin Blue used the word systemic multiple times to describe drone usage and spying in and among Canada Soccer. That's concerning, and that suggests that this is not an isolated incident. Just for context, Kevin Blue took over the post in February 2024. So I think in a lot of ways, he's still getting caught up to speed on everything Canada Soccer. And this is undoubtedly his first major hurdle, learning of systemic cheating that goes back multiple years. Secondly, he didn't specifically say anything about Bev Priestman's future, or at least give a timeline on Bev Priestman's future. I think my sense is, right, he wants to let the athletes be the focus right now. So terminating Bev Priestman's contract would be, I guess, a further distraction. I don't think that's something Kevin Blue wants to do right now until he has all the information at his disposal. So status quo right now with Bev Priestman, she will not continue with the women's national team at the Olympics. Third, and this is kind of top of mind for me right now, given that I spent the entirety of Copa America with the men's national team covering them in the United States. Kevin Blue said he learned that there was attempted drone usage by a member of the men's national team at Copa America, yet that drone usage did not impact any of the competitive results, and that Jesse Marsh, Canada's new national team head coach, only learned about this drone usage after the fact, right? So those are the 3 big takeaways for me. There's a lot to chew on there. So certainly this is a story that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Josh, do you think this is going to be a cleaning of the house moment that throughout the Canadian FA, that they're going to go through everyone who knew and willingly participated should be let go, and a cleaning of the house basically in that situation?
I think it has to be, and I say that for a few reasons, right? Canada Soccer, as we are well aware, they're the butt of jokes online because they never seem to be far away from scandal. The World Cup is coming to Canada in less than 2 years. And I know for a fact a focus of Kevin Blue, again, Canada Soccer's new general secretary who took over the post in February, and Canada Soccer's new president, Peter Agruso, who took over this spring, their focus is completely legitimizing Canada Soccer and proving to essentially sponsors and proving to stakeholders that ahead of the 2026 World Cup, which it sort of goes without saying, it's the biggest event in Canadian soccer, hosting World Cup games, men's World Cup games. They want to prove that this organization is trustworthy. So if that involves, as you said, cleaning house, because the calls to clean house with Canada Soccer never seem to be far away. We know that there's been constant scandals. We know that there's been off-field distractions. So if this is an opportunity to really prove, again, to stakeholders, to sponsors, how serious you are about making Canada Soccer a legitimate and trusted organization, that wouldn't surprise me if that's a step that they take.
Josh, you bring up clearing house, and also you brought up an investigation, which I'm sure will eventually get to the bottom of this. I think a fear on a lot of Canadians' minds right now is what happens if we find out that, say, a John Herdman was the mastermind of this. Based on the timelines, it seems to match up a little bit, or at least it feels like it may. What do you think that says about the tenure that he's had there? What do you think that says about the awards that he won, or the teams won? And what do you think that says about his tenure at TFC?
So a big takeaway for me here, and I'm connecting or I'm correlating, I guess, John Herdman and Bev Priestman. For so long at Canada Soccer, their power went unchecked, right? John Herdman was given an 8-year contract when he took over the men's team. And I don't need to tell you guys, 8 years is an astronomically large amount of time for any coach, right? Bev Priestman was given a new contract in January of 2024 when there was this murky middle point in between leadership figures at Canada Soccer. And this was coming off a pretty poor performance at the Women's World Cup. So this all goes to say, for me personally, I think their power went unchecked for way too long. And I think this is why they were able to get away, or supposedly they were able, these allegations have not been completely proven just yet, why they were able to get away with these things for so long. That's what's concerning to me, is that within Canada Soccer, under previous leadership, right, these coaches just had far too much power, and that power went unchecked. I don't think it's fair to get into anything that's happened with John Herdman at Toronto FC right now. But I certainly think that, John Herdman and Bev Priestman are close. John Herdman is going to be speaking to the media ahead of Leagues Cup in a few hours. He will undoubtedly get questions about that. He's had questions about drone usage in the past, right? The Honduras national team essentially accused, Canada of spying on them during that 2022 World Cup qualifying, right? And John Herdman essentially talked his way out of it. Again, I just keep coming back to the fact that there was just far too much power for these two for so long. And if you are going to run a competitive and sustainable and legitimate soccer federation, as Canada Soccer wants to do, you have to ensure that there are checks and balances, within the coaching ranks, within management, to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah, not just for reference, when Claudio Reyna was involved with everything in the fallout with the Berhalter and back and forth, he was eventually, indirectly, but eventually out at Austin FC. So the reason I asked, so you're wearing AirPods, and that reminded me of John Herdman. So
he had the really nice brown AirPods. These
skin tone.
These are factory issue.
Josh, I want to talk about what's happening currently at the Olympics. Canada, the reigning gold medalist from the previous Tokyo Olympics, they have a big match against France. Now, when you commit breaking of rules, there's consequences. So from your knowledge, what are some of the potential repercussions that might be in waiting for this national team at the Olympics right now?
I do think there is some concern, from Canada Soccer and from the Canada Olympic Committee that points could be deducted, right? And I say that because that was one of the first things Kevin Blue said today during his press conference, is he strongly believes no points should be deducted, obviously from the New Zealand match which they won, and moving forward. Kevin Blue was clear. He does not believe the women, the players themselves, knew about the drone usage or were able to gain any competitive advantage from the drone usage. And you've already started to see some former players come out on Twitter and say, players that played under Bev Priestman and played at the 2021 Olympics, coming out and saying, we didn't know, we never had any help in that regard. And I think for the time being, it's important to separate the players, right, from the coaching staff. These players work remarkably hard, right, during their club seasons to prepare for the Olympics, right? It's always in the back of their minds. So I don't think it's fair to kind of correlate those two. But look, this is going to be a constant distraction for the women's national team for the duration of the Olympics, right? It's a lose-lose for them, right? Unfortunately, if they go out early, which obviously no one is hoping that they do, but if that's the case, right, people are going to say, well, they got what they deserved. If they go far in this tournament, and certainly they have the quality to do so, these allegations are going to hang over them. So it's a lose-lose for the players, and I do feel for them right now. I think you're just going to see from a lot of the senior players, especially new leadership, and I think you're going to see these players, play with their backs against the wall Kevin Blue has said that he's made himself available to these players to help them in any way. And I think you're really going to see a women's team, play with a much more hardened mentality than perhaps they would have coming into this tournament. But again, unfortunately, lose for them no matter what, right?
Josh, one of the things that came to light that I know sent shockwaves was that this went all the way back to the gold medal winning run that Canada went on in 2021, and that drone usage was used during closed-door training sessions en route to winning gold. How likely is it, do you think, that we see Canada losing that gold medal status from that tournament?
That one, if I'm being completely honest, is probably a bit over my pay grade. And I say that because the IOC is no stranger to scandals, right? We know that there's, not just with Canada, with multiple teams. It kind of goes without saying that seems like there are, teams that are accused of cheating in some form or another quite often. So I don't know about that one, but I do think that there will be repercussions for people in the women's team beyond the two coaches that have been sent home, right? It would sincerely surprise me if Bev Priestman keeps her job with Canada Soccer beyond this, right? Because again, I just think if you're Canada Soccer and you are trying to legitimize yourself before the 2026 World Cup, right, which is less than 2 years away, you want to make sure that you are as far away from scandal as possible, right, when these World Cup games occur. And I think you're probably going to wait to see until, their independent review, which they are committed to, is finished. But it wouldn't surprise me if afterwards Bev Priestman is no longer the coach of the women's team.
Josh, maybe give us a little bit of an update as to the state of Canada Soccer at the moment, obviously coming from, a really tough financial situation, but they seem to be coming out of it, momentum building, and now this. What do you think their ability is to withstand a controversy like this heading into 2026?
Well, Canada Soccer is no stranger to controversy, right? We go back before the Men's World Cup in 2022. The men's team boycotted a friendly against Panama because of a pay dispute. They still have not formalized a CBA, right? The players still have not formalized a CBA with Canada Soccer. That was very high on Kevin Blue's priority list when he took over in February. That's going to be pushed to the back burner right now. My sense, both from talking, to Kevin Blue and Peter Aggruso and talking to people in Canada Soccer, around Canada Soccer, is that there's a lot of respect for these two in terms of how they are going about business, how they are putting results and the soccer first in a way that perhaps, past leadership figures did not. So I think there was a feeling of positivity moving forward. Obviously, this scandal is going to derail that slightly, I'm sure. But I do think there's a feeling of confidence in Kevin Blue and Peter Aggruso right now. If they can come out of this, there's going to be a better feeling. But look, if you're a sponsor of Canada Soccer in any way, you have every right to question whether or not you should continue that relationship. If you're a stakeholder, you have every right to question that relationship. And if you're a player, right, I think about dual nationals, right, which Canada Soccer is always working hard to try and bring dual nationals into the program because of the World Cup coming, in less than 2 years. You're going to be asking yourself, do I want to be associated with a program, an organization that is never far away from scandal? So the work to legitimize, the work to repair is going to be an ongoing one. And I think that the trust that a lot of people maybe felt they had with Canada Soccer, and I'm talking about fans specifically, I think the trust that a lot of fans felt they had throughout Copa America, a really inspiring run, probably falls by the wayside right now. So a lot of work for Canada Soccer to do to repair trust again within the team, around the team, within the Canadian soccer community as a whole.